The Honourable Second Member for La Caverne and Phoenix, Mr. Suivez, was asked to withdraw from the House after he challenged the authority bestowed upon me as presiding officer with regard to supplementary questions, both in terms of relevancy and number. Although Standing Order 79 provides that I am not bound to give any reason in support of any of my decisions, I am making an exception to explain what happened earlier from a procedural point of view, since it appears that some honourable members persist in ignoring the standing orders, rules, and other established practice governing this House. The conduct of the Chair is thereafter commented upon and or misrepresented outside the House in a manner which is detrimental to this august Assembly. While the official report and the video footage testify to what happens during proceedings, it may, however, not always be clear to viewers as to whether same are procedurally in order or not. In the light of the aforesaid, allow me to refer to procedure governing supplementary questions, namely Standing Order 26, which provides as follows. Supplementary questions may only be put for the further elucidation of the information requested and shall be subject to the ruling of the Speaker, both as to relevance and number. A supplementary question must not introduce matter not included in the original question. It follows from the above that once the Chair is satisfied that a question has been sufficiently canvassed, the question of further supplementary questions does not arise. Moreover, as I intimated in a precedent announcement as a Speaker, whose duty it is to preside the sittings of the Assembly, I only exercise such authority with which I am endowed. It is now clear to one and all, I hope, that earlier today, once again, Honourable Suivez ignored the provisions of the standing orders and persisted in the said direction in spite of my guidance and in the circumstances in order to allow the House proceed with its business. Honourable Suivez had to be ordered to withdraw from the House. I thank you for your attention. Honourable Lobien.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, as we, the human race, continue to embark on an unknown journey, on this irreversible path of destruction of our Mother Nature and our ecosystem, one certainty that subsists is that we should do whatever is possible to take mitigating actions to alleviate future human sufferings that will continue to affect planet Earth in the form of diseases, climate change, and other natural calamities. As highlighted by the Honourable Prime Minister, the United Nations Human Rights Council's recognition that a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment is a human right, this can be a game changer, Mr. Speaker, sir, for people and the planet. That is, actions that we will take to protect our environment and to live in a clean environment. To make it happen, Mr. Speaker, sir, I agree that we should develop a national cleaning and embellishment strategy with an action plan to embellish Mauritius and keep Mauritius clean. I also agree that we should identify and prioritize what are the sites that we need to be kept clean and need embellishment. I also agree that we should coordinate, monitor, and supervise the implementation of embellishment and cleaning programs. But for this to happen, Mr. Speaker, sir, the creation of yet another authority will not suffice. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is much more needed to make this human right a reality for all. We must advance efforts to implement the right, working hand in hand with the civil society, the businesses, and other stakeholders. They must take urgent environmental action backed by adequate finance and support a just transition to sustainable human rights-based economy. There is a crying demand, for instance, Mr. Speaker, sir, to provide the local authorities with this opportunity to continue to help in this quest to keep our country clean, with adequate financing and manpower. As Mr. Speaker, sir, more than 80% of the annual budget for local authorities are allocated to those authorities to cater for salaries of staff. That is why local authorities are dysfunctional in their mission to maintain cleanliness around. Even the Honourable Prime Minister at some point in time said that they need to be more proactive, the local authorities, because they do lack incentives. They do not have proper equipment. They are poorly manned. And I do appreciate that this authority will oversee, will overlook what those local authorities are doing. But empowering those local authorities as well will also help in going a step further for a clean Mauritius. And Mr. Speaker, sir, businesses as well, the private sector as well, should integrate environmental considerations in human rights due diligence processes, fully accounting for how the environmental effects of their activities can also affect human rights. Here in Mauritius, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is worth pointing out that we have fallen short of two very important targets set on the global stage by multinational environmental agreements. Mauritius pledged to protect 17% of terrestrial and inland water as well as 10% of coastal habitat by 2025. As of now, Mr. Speaker, sir, only 4.725% terrestrial area and 0.003% of marine and coastal area are protected. On the Millennium Development Goals, Mr. Speaker, sir, targets for CO2 emissions, per capita emissions continue to grow every year. And Mr. Speaker, sir, Mauritius' overall lackluster environmental performance at its per capita income level is evident in its below average position in an environmental performance index 2022, where all African small island developing states are singled out. This environmental performance index was conducted by researchers from Yale University and Columbia University in collaboration with the World Economic Forum to measure the cleanliness and environmental friendliness of 180 countries around the world. To accomplish this task, they created the Environmental Performance Index. In comparison, Mr. Speaker, sir, Seychelles is ranked 38th, Singapore is ranked 39th, the United Arab Emirates, they are ranked 42nd, and Mauritius, Mr. Speaker, sir, is ranked only 83rd. We must also bear in mind that Mauritius is considered to be the 7th most exposed country to natural disasters out of 171 countries and ranked 19th in terms of risk because of the state of preparedness of the country. Mr. Speaker, sir, thus, each year matters. Each choice matters. Each half a degree matters. There is utmost urgency to act. This is an indication that we have a mammoth task ahead to take Mauritius to the level of cleanliness that we would wish our country to be, in the best interest of our people. We all want to see the borders, the edges, the verges of our motorways green, clean, well maintained, with the lawns properly maintained, as it were before, with flowers, beautiful flowers throughout the season, like in Dubai, in Singapore. We want to have a vast program for the plantation of endemic trees, as many as possible around the island. We want to have our rivers clean, Mr. Speaker, sir, but also our drains to be well maintained. And as pointed out by Honorable Nagalingam and Honorable Joanna Béranger, this authority will be yet another addition to the other authorities and stakeholders that are already embarking in such initiative as per the spirit of this bill. I shall refer here to an answer provided by the Honorable Minister Ramanu to a PQ asked by Honorable Abbas Mahmoud on the 23rd of November 2021 with regard to the implementation of the master plan for the greening and embellishment along the M1, M2 and M3 motorways, and the Honorable Minister stated as follows, and I quote, "In line with its vision for a cleaner and greener Mauritius, the Ministry of Environment, Solid Waste Management and Climate Change has on 5th October 2020 contracted the consultancy services of YKNG Limited for the preparation of a master plan for the greening and embellishment of the motorways M1 and M2. And it goes on to say that they have got in this project the purpose of planting more than 600,000 plots around the motorways that will represent around 8,740 plots per kilometer. And in this very lengthy answer, the Honourable Minister has provided what the master plan is all about. That is, the work is already on the way. There is a ministry, the Ministry of Environment, that has already entered into memorandum of understanding with the Road Development Authority and the other sponsors for the embellishment and cleaning programs with regards to motorways. And same is being done by local authorities, same is being done by the Beach Authority. So, at this point in time, Mr. Speaker, sir, I am of the humble opinion that the Honourable Prime Minister should have gone a step further. Instead of advocating for the setting up of a national environment cleaning authority, there should have been a more holistic approach and instead come with a national environment agency with more powers, constitutional powers if need be, to englobe as an umbrella organization all the stakeholders, be it the Wastewater Management Authority, be it the Road Development Authority. All those authorities come under this National Environment Agency, which will have these supervisory powers to oversee all their actions, instead of co-opting all the representatives from all these various ministries. You will have an agency that you have in Singapore. Singapore have this National Environment Agency, and it is working very well, Mr. Speaker, sir. This would, in my humble view, help to harmonize the position, the acts and doings of local authorities, the RDA, the Beach Authority, and the wastewater. So I shall urge the Honourable Prime Minister to also consider that we need to revamp and have a more vibrant and well-equipped and properly manned police de l'environnement as a law enforcement agency. Because to keep cleanliness and to have a green Mauritius, we need also to have responsible citizens. And we need a police de l'environnement that is well-equipped, Mr. Speaker. So as it is now, the police de l'environnement is the poor men in the police services. They do not have properly manned vehicles, or they do not have properly well-equipped personnel to go on the spot to tackle people that are polluting around. And I will also urge the Honourable Prime Minister that this, I believe this bill will pass and there will be a new authority. So be it. Then the Honourable Prime Minister should also consider that major investments should be made with regard to tools and equipments. Mr. Speaker, sir, when you go around the island, you see the way our manual workers, be it in the local authorities or beach authority, wherever they are poorly equipped, Mr. Speaker, sir. They do not have the basic requirement tools, and also they do not have the modern tools, for example. You go on the motorway, they will be using grass cutters. They will It is not lawn mowers, proper lawn mowers for motorways like we have in Singapore or Dubai. So I would urge the Honorable Prime Minister that they should be provided with adequate equipment, and we should give more incentives and the working conditions of manual workers that will man this authority, that will work with this authority. They should be properly given further incentives in terms of their conditions of work, in terms of salaries. Mr. Speaker, sir, cleanliness is next to godliness. There should be a concerted effort by each and everyone to make our country clean and green and pass on a legacy of hope to our future generation. We are in a climate change emergency, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'm sure that most of us got involved in politics to effect positive changes. And the most important changes and legacy that we parliamentarians from both sides of this House can leave are the ones that will help to shape the future for our children and our grandchildren by taking positive steps to save and protect our environment and their future prosperity. Let us rise above party politics and make Mauritius a reference and example for the rest of the world in terms of our cleanliness, well-being, and quality of life. And I'm sure that be it this authority, be it the Ministry of Environment, be it the Ministry of Local Government, there should be that concerted effort instead of just having all these authorities working on their own. Have this concerted effort under this authority, whether it will be consolidated with other people being co-opted in this board. I humbly suggest and believe and want it to happen that they will work in the best interest of our environment to have a clean Mauritius, because we all want a clean, beautiful, and green Mauritius. And I'm very positive that this will happen, and I will urge government to embark on this path to make Mauritius clean, green. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honorable Leopold.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to take part in this debate briefly and to say a few words on this bill, because with the everlasting debate on climate change and the efforts that government are taking to meet environmental objectives, I believe that this piece of legislation is in setting a national environment cleaning authority is an element of a governance framework to meet the environmental objectives. That is, keeping Mauritius clean. First, or to maintain and achieve an environment which enhances human health and the well-being of everyone. This is a good step in achieving sustainable development, as it is a key element in offering opportunities to create a coherent long-term framework for the environment, in enabling all sectors and all parts of a society to plan, to commit to, and to collaborate on improving the environment on which we and the future generation depends. Mr. Speaker, it is a core governance element that will be needed, as I've said, for generations to come. A cleaner Mauritius will also enhance its beauty in terms of biodiversity and its natural heritage. And this will attract, furthermore, visitors to our country. And the people of Mauritius, in the Republic of Mauritius, are all concerned of the disastrous effects of unclean environment and climate change. And efforts are being made across the Republic to maintain a safe and clean environment. And one of the examples is the banning of single-use plastic bags. And conventional plastic packaging, plastic bags, which are not reusable, which are not recyclable, which are not compostable, will be soon not to be found in our waste. So this bill will give us the opportunity to clear and making our republic free from single-use plastics. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have a role of authority to set up sensitization and communication strategy. So, therefore, its role together with other partners will not be solely on cleaning and embellishment, but and maintain a clean environment is not just an enforcement matters. It must be an educational matters too. Mr. Speaker, sir, there will be little or no waste if there are no litterers. Litterers are the biggest polluters in Mauritius. Education and sensitization are very important, therefore, to keep Mauritius clean and embellished. And this bill, Mr. Speaker, needs to give that legal provision and the necessary legal provision to the Environment Clean Authority to see the relative balance of responsibilities of litterers. And once again, I welcome this bill. It is an advance in keeping Mauritius cleaner. It is bringing necessary regulation and education and will contribute to develop a healthier, safer, and attractive environment for all its people and visitors. And this is my contribution on this bill, Mr. Speaker. I thank you for your attention.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you. And I'm very grateful to be availed this opportunity to contribute to the National Environment Cleaning Authority Bill. And I start by congratulating our Honourable Prime Minister for bringing this bill to the House. Mr. Speaker, sir, over the years, various governments across the world have adopted different policy measures and efforts in order to clean up their towns and cities. In the recent past, in 2017, the President of Ghana established a dedicated Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources with a bid to make Accra the neatest and the cleanest city in Africa, to enable this country to gain a global status in environmental cleanliness. In another continent, the UK, Mr. Speaker, sir, aims to be a leader in environmental protection, going further than the initiatives to date and delivering a country where everyone can proudly say that they love where they live. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to go over a couple of points put forward by the Honourable Béranger, who was purporting that it is bypassing the existing institutions. I don't think, Mr. Speaker, sir, that this bill aims at blaming or sidelining our existing institutions that are responsible for cleaning. What she was putting forward was what to clean, where to clean, when to clean, what to use, what precautions to take to protect the health and the environment. This bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, it aims at having a well-coordinated national strategy and an action plan to ensure more effectiveness and efficiency in exactly that, keeping the country clean and healthy. And this automatically, naturally, implies reinforcing our existing capabilities of the beach authority, the local authorities, the RDA, the LDA, and all the other institutions. There is no paradox as put forward or purported by the honourable member on the other side. There is no duplication in responsibilities at all. But what this bill and the upcoming authority brings about is a synergy, distinction in roles and responsibilities of these existing institutions. And this, Mr. Speaker, sir, will only help in improving their effectiveness. So I believe that the honourable member's arguments are very much equity, and if we go about adopting her proposals on how cleaning should be done, which amounts to a piecemeal approach to what is everybody agrees is a national concern. What we actually need is coherence. We need harmonization. We need synergy, like I said. We need to optimize our resources. We need to distinctly have our responsibilities looked at with a holistic approach. And because of its bearing, its importance, cleanliness in itself has a huge bearing on the environment, on our health, the health of our citizens, and very importantly, on the attractiveness of our country to foreigners and to investors, Mr. Speaker, sir. The Keep Singapore Clean, I quote, campaign was one of Singapore's first national campaigns launched in 1968 as an independent nation. It was a month-long campaign aimed at making Singapore the cleanest and greenest city in the region by addressing the problem of inconsiderate littering. The campaign reached out to every stratum of society and sought to instill in Singaporeans the importance of keeping public places clean. The government believed that improved environmental conditions would not only enhance the quality of life of its citizens and cultivate national pride, but also help to attract foreign investors and tourists to Singapore, and we are all aware of how successful that was. Mr. Speaker, sir, we know that Mauritius is set onto an unprecedented path of modernity under the leadership of our Honourable Prime Minister, and with him at the helm, we shall keep on this track. Modernity has to be coupled with cleanliness. People and states shall recognize the transformation that Mauritius is going through, but it is paramount that we always remember and be reckoned for sustainable environment and our palm-fringed beaches. It is therefore praiseworthy that the Honourable Prime Minister and his government are not overlooking the importance of safeguarding the very soul of our Paradise Island. And the pristine beauty of our island, Mr. Speaker, sir, will definitely be further preserved through the National Environment Cleaning Authority Bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, the authority, like extensively explained in his introduction by the Prime Minister, the authority will work in close collaboration with relevant ministries and stakeholders to come up with adequate strategies, and there shall be an appropriate action plan for this holistic approach in order to manage the environment. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, the implementation of such an action plan, and let's be very clear about this, shall not be the responsibility of authorities only. It should engage and involve every citizen in our republic, and that is when we will see the meaningful changes. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mauritius has been experiencing floods, flash floods, with increasing frequency, and this undoubtedly affects families to the extent of some of them losing all their precious belongings at times. This government already has and keeps on improving on the schedule of clearing of drains, of natural watercourses, of rivers. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to share with the House and the population, and I speak here under the correction of my honourable colleagues, Honourable Ariram and Honourable Ramano, allow me to share the alarming findings, the shocking amount of junk that is discovered during the schedule and emergency clearing exercises. Mr. Speaker, sir, plastic, rubber tires, washing machines, wheelbarrows, balti, dekti, cuvette, masses and masses of non-biodegradable rubbish is discovered during these clearing exercises, Mr. Speaker, sir. In fact, on one occasion, we even struggled to remove a queen-size mattress from a small drain that barely had enough room to swing a cat in, and this is unfortunately due to the irresponsibility of some people. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mauritius is highly vulnerable to the adverse impacts of climate change. The 2021 World Risk Report has ranked Mauritius as the 51st country with the highest disaster risk out of 181 countries, and obviously this calls for concern. Mr. Speaker, sir, the gender dimension of climate change is a relatively recent area of work in the Mauritian context. The Climate Change Act 2020, which came into force as of April last year, has made provision for a Department of Climate Change, which also takes into consideration the gender aspect when it commissions studies on climate change. And I take this opportunity to thank the government for that. This will ensure that women are involved in decision-making processes at the correct levels. Mr. Speaker, sir, despite all the unprecedented challenges and the pandemonium created by the COVID-19, this government, being a socialist government, is putting the well-being of its population at the center of every development. The National Environment Cleaning Authority will, with the joint collaboration of all stakeholders, will make all citizens feel the change, but most importantly, be the change and benefit from one of the dimensions of wellness, which is environmental wellness. The government has already taken several bold decisions in respect of our environment, one of them being the ban on plastic bags. Waste from plastic bags poses a serious environmental danger to human and animal health. We are now making use of eco-friendly bags such as biodegradable and compostable bags for the benefit of our environment. Mr. Speaker, sir, the National Environment Cleaning Authority Bill also makes provision for a monitoring and evaluation framework to ensure that all stakeholders submit feedback regularly. This provision is very much important, is as much as it will assist enormously with thinking through the programmatic strategies, objectives, and planned activities which are fundamental for the attainment of the objects of the bill. And here I welcome the suggestion of Honourable Lubin from the other side of the House when he mentioned that the authority and the personnel need to be adequately equipped to be able to perform their duties in making Mauritius green and clean. But there is also the danger that when we do equip them, so there is always going to be perpetual debates about how we go about government business. Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill reiterates the government's firm undertaking to promote a clean and healthy environment. Community engagement is one of the cornerstones of environmental sustainability. It is through community engagement that we will appreciate the experiences that impact not only the environment, but also the individuals and the communities as they interact with the environment. We have to, in the words of Fergus Bruce, the co-founder of After the Pandemic, and I quote, "We need to rethink, reimagine, and redesign our cities and communities in order to be greener, more resilient, and more vibrant," end of quote. This, Mr. Speaker, sir, will ultimately be the start of the journey towards a greener, healthier, and brighter future. Mr. Speaker, sir, I go back again to what Honourable Jean Béranger purported earlier on, saying that the setting up of such an authority will be inviting a misuse of public funds. This authority, this cleaning authority, Mr. Speaker, so unfortunately for her party, cannot be extended to a déblayage politique, because maybe otherwise it could have been used to stop the erosion within the party. That's very unfortunate, but I wish to reassure her that the objects of this bill are very much welcome. To conclude, Mr. Speaker, sir, through the National Environment Cleaning Authority Bill, the Prime Minister is setting out to make a huge difference. The bill is a gift to posterity, it's a gift to our motherland, to our future generations, to our children, for a beautiful, cleaner, safer, and healthier environment. This is impossible or will be impossible without change. And those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything, Mr. Speaker, sir. Allow me to put on record my appreciation to the Prime Minister once again for bringing the bill to the House, a bill that demonstrates his all-encompassing vision for a prosperous republic, prosperity in all its form, and I thank you all for your attention, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Monsieur le Président, le National Environment Cleaning Authority Bill est une étape importante pour réaliser le rêve de tous nos citoyens d'avoir un pays propre et bien embelli. L'objectif principal de la National Environment Cleaning Authority est de développer une stratégie nationale de nettoyage et d'embellissement avec un plan d'action pour embellir et garder Maurice propre. Ces étapes feront de Maurice un pays plus propre et plus vert et, bien sûr, où il sera agréable à vivre, bien sûr. En fait, il existe actuellement diverses législations bien connues couvrant les aspects de littering, dumping, législation concernant les terrains vagues, le nettoyage, l'entretien des espaces verts, les réserves routières, les plages, entre autres. Cependant, les parties prenantes concernées sont toujours confrontées non seulement à de nombreuses contraintes, mais également à des lacunes et des obstacles majeurs, notamment le manque de coopération, des fois. La création de la National Environment Cleaning Authority était une initiative très attendue et opportune. L'autorité apportera les synergies nécessaires et fournira l'assistance nécessaire à toutes les entités concernées en coordonnant, en surveillant et en supervisant la mise en œuvre des programmes nationaux de nettoyage et d'embellissement. Conformément au programme gouvernemental 2020-2024, le développement d'un cadre de vie plus propre et plus sûr pour chaque citoyen de ce pays est l'une des principales priorités de ce gouvernement. Nous sommes efforcés de développer une île Maurice plus propre et plus verte et nous arrivons maintenant à la création de la National Environment Cleaning Authority. Cette autorité sera un one-stop shop, adoptera une approche one-stop shop pour une meilleure coordination des résultats et une meilleure responsabilité pour le nettoyage. À travers la mise en place de cette autorité, nous réunirons toutes les ressources, l'expertise et le savoir-faire des acteurs concernés, dont mon ministère, pour assurer la coordination de toutes les actions relatives au nettoyage et à l'embellissement de Maurice. Cette approche coordonnée garantira la prévention de toute duplication de travail et les activités de nettoyage par les différentes autorités pourront être réalisées efficacement avec des ressources humaines et des fonds publics limités. Monsieur le Président, en ce qui concerne mon ministère, la Living Environment Unit apportera son appui à la National Environment Cleaning Authority pour la conception, l'élaboration, la gestion, la réalisation et l'entretien de divers projets visant à améliorer l'environnement immédiat ainsi qu'à améliorer la qualité de vie des citoyens de Maurice. La réalisation des projets et l'entretien des sites sont sous la tutelle de la LIU de mon ministère et comprennent, entre autres, le nettoyage, l'embellissement des lieux publics, y compris les lieux de culte, l'aménagement et l'entretien des espaces verts, les health tracks, les jardins endémiques, les jardins d'enfants, wellness parks, l'organisation des campagnes de nettoyage en collaboration avec les autorités compétentes et l'entretien régulier des bordures d'autoroute M1, M2 de Grand B à Plaine-Magnan par une équipe dédiée d'ouvriers internes. La Chambre souhaite peut-être également noter qu'à la suite d'un master plan pour les autoroutes M1, M2, mon ministère verdit et embellit le tronçon du rond-point de Balison au rond-point de Nouvelle-France grâce aux fonds fournis par le National Environment and Climate Change Fund. Le verdissement et l'embellissement du rond-point de La Vigie au rond-point de Wooton sont également envisagés et la collaboration d'organisations du secteur privé est recherchée pour la mise en œuvre des recommandations du master plan le long des segments restants des autoroutes M1, M2. De plus, avec la collaboration de la Road Development Authority et des autorités locales respectives, mon ministère propose le verdissement et l'embellissement des routes principales menant vers les villes et villages. Monsieur le Président, le National Environment Cleaning Authority Bill arrive à un beau moment, alors que des deux côtés de la Chambre débattraient et soutiendraient un autre projet de loi, le Beach Authority Amendment Bill, qui indique clairement le sérieux et la détermination de ce gouvernement dans sa volonté de réhabiliter nos côtes, de gérer, contrôler et réguler les activités balnéaires, ainsi que s'engager dans le nettoyage et l'embellissement de notre pays. Ce sont des conditions sine qua non pour commercialiser notre pays au monde extérieur en tant que pays propre et soucieux de l'environnement, à un moment où notre secteur du tourisme se remet progressivement de l'épidémie de Covid-19. Nous devons aller de l'avant sur la voie du programme national de nettoyage, qui sera dirigé par le bureau du Premier ministre. À cette fin, le National Environment Cleaning Authority Bill fixe à juste titre le cadre juridique et institutionnel pour une coordination, un suivi de supervision. À l'heure actuelle, nous savons tous qu'il existe plusieurs institutions, notamment le ministère des collectivités locales et de la gestion des catastrophes et des risques, le ministère du Tourisme, mon propre ministère engagé isolément dans ces activités de nettoyage. Malheureusement, il faut concéder ici que les travaux de nettoyage et d'embellissement sont des fois à la traîne. Il est donc grand temps d'avoir cette autorité centrale comme organe suprême chargé de coordonner la mise en œuvre d'un programme et d'une stratégie nationale. Cela aidera ainsi à mettre en place des normes et des standards à adopter lors de l'exécution de ces travaux de nettoyage et d'embellissement, et en même temps à garantir que les travaux effectués par les autorités compétentes correspondent à un stratégique national. Monsieur le Président, comme je l'ai mentionné précédemment, le programme de nettoyage et d'embellissement impliquera évidemment la participation active de mon ministère, y compris de la Beach Authority, qui est actuellement responsable de la gestion et le contrôle de 132 plages publiques à Maurice et 12 à Rodrigue. Nous savons tous que la préservation de nos plages publiques est un moteur et aussi augmente la visibilité du pays et aussi est un outil de promotion pour notre île. À cette fin, nous nous lançons dans la campagne de marketing touristique et en ciblant particulièrement nos plages immaculées dans le monde entier. Nous ne devons pas échouer dans notre volonté de les garder propres, vertes, sûres et exemptes de toutes sortes de pollution, avec les commodités de base en place pour le bénéfice de nos usagers de la plage. À ce stade, il est utile de mentionner que l'une des fonctions essentielles de la Beach Authority est d'assurer le nettoyage quotidien de toutes les plages publiques, qui est actuellement exécuté via des contracteurs pour 71 plages publiques et le reste par la main-d'œuvre interne de l'autorité. Malheureusement, en tant que petit État insulaire en développement, exposé aux aléas climatiques et à ces dégradations environnementales sur nos plages, la Beach Authority n'est pas du tout épargnée par ces imprévus qui freinent définitivement ces bonnes actions. La mise en œuvre d'une telle autorité sera sans aucun doute très utile et bénéfique pour le pays pour se préparer à une meilleure gestion et une coordination de sa stratégie de nettoyage face aux aléas du changement climatique. Monsieur le Président, il est bien connu que les déchets jonchés abritent des moustiques vecteurs de maladies telles que le paludisme, le chikungunya, la dengue et d'autres menaces pour la santé publique. Une autre priorité un peu reléguée pour l'instant du fait de la pandémie du Covid-19 est de renforcer encore notre résilience de santé publique, environnementale, face à ces menaces omniprésentes. La mise en place de la National Environment Cleaning Authority permettra sans doute aux autorités de mieux réunir les moyens afin d'assainir notre environnement. Au niveau de mon ministère, des amendements ont été apportés au Dumping and Waste Carriers Regulations par la division de la gestion des déchets solides pour permettre à toute personne de transporter des déchets jusqu'à 500 kg dans les véhicules jusqu'à la prochaine déchetterie et qui est située au niveau des stations de transfert. D'autre part, les petits camions ayant des paniers à déchets d'une hauteur allant jusqu'à 50 cm peuvent désormais transporter des déchets de construction et de démolition et des déchets secs vers n'importe quelle station de transfert. Dans notre croisade pour une transition vers une économie circulaire dans la gestion des déchets, mon ministère veillerait à la valorisation maximale des déchets pour maximiser l'utilisation des matériaux et des produits afin de réduire l'utilisation des ressources vierges. Tous ces déchets devraient autant que possible devenir l'intrant d'autres processus, contrairement à l'économie linéaire traditionnelle qui a un modèle de production prendre, fabriquer, utiliser et jeter, où les ressources sont utilisées à partir des réserves finies pour créer des produits avec une durée de vie déterminée qui finissent finalement dans les décharges. Cette mesure, comme souligné dans la hiérarchie de la gestion des déchets, est alignée sur l'objectif du développement durable, l'objectif 12 du développement durable, qui vise à réduire considérablement la production des déchets par la prévention, la réduction, le recyclage et la réutilisation d'ici 2030. Monsieur le Président, l'élimination des déchets à la décharge de Marchicose est néanmoins une mesure à court terme. À moyen et long terme, mon ministère prévoit la mise en place d'usines régionales de compostage pour traiter les déchets organiques pour la production de compost et des unités de tri. Accepter les matériaux recyclables non contaminés à des fins de recyclage. Les déchets qui ne peuvent pas être compostés ou recyclés seraient éventuellement éliminés à la décharge. Avec ces installations en place et les exigences de collecte des déchets sous forme de flux séparés au lieu des flux mélangés, la National Environment Review Authority veillera ainsi à ce que toutes les parties prenantes concernées suivent cette nouvelle directive pour le fonctionnement efficace de ces unités en fournissant des déchets de haute qualité. Cela permettrait d'aller vers la mise en œuvre d'une approche d'économie circulaire dans le secteur des déchets solides. Monsieur le Président, le problème des terrains vagues afflige notre pays depuis un certain temps avec des impacts environnementaux, sociaux et sanitaires néfastes. Selon les enquêtes menées par les autorités locales et les statistiques soumises par ces dernières à mon ministère à fin mars 2022, il y avait au total environ 14 950 terrains vagues qui ont été identifiés à proximité des zones résidentielles et des utilisations sensibles des terres. Celles-ci comprennent 7 520 terrains vagues avec des propriétaires connus, 7 060 avec des propriétaires inconnus et 370 statelands. Des plaintes sont reçues en permanence auprès de mon ministère et d'autres autorités, y compris via le Citizen Support Portal, concernant des nuisances résultant des terrains vagues. Il convient de noter que depuis le lancement du Citizen Support Portal en avril 2017 jusqu'en février 2022, un total d'environ 5 800 plaintes concernant diverses nuisances causées par des terrains abandonnés ont déjà été enregistrées sur le portail. Comme vous le savez bien, les terrains abandonnés avec une végétation envahissante sont désagréables, inesthétiques et bien sûr représentent un danger à la santé des citoyens. Les déchets y sont déversés sans discernement par des citoyens malheureusement irresponsables et qui, par un phénomène connu sous le nom du Broken Windows Theory, conduit souvent à de plus en plus de déchets déversés sur ces parcelles, conduisant finalement à la transformation de ces sites en dépotoirs, donnant ainsi lieu à la prolifération de rongeurs et autres ravageurs, une augmentation de l'incidence des maladies à transmission vectorielle. La Chambre se souviendra de la question de l'infestation de myriapodes à Pointe-Sable, qui a été soulevée dans cette même Assemblée. La principale cause de cet incident remonte à la présence de terrains vagues à proximité des zones habitées. De plus, très souvent, les terrains vagues abritent également des bâtiments abandonnés et des véhicules d'épave qui aggravent la situation et deviennent des cachettes pour, malheureusement, des personnes mal intentionnées. Monsieur le Président, malgré les différentes législations et mécanismes réglementaires en place, le problème des terrains vagues et des nuisances qui y sont associées persiste toujours. Étant une île tropicale avec des précipitations fréquentes, il y a une tendance à une croissance rapide et récurrente de la végétation qui nécessite donc un entretien et une mobilisation constante de la main-d'œuvre. Le coût associé à un tel nettoyage sont élevés et difficiles à récupérer. On m'informe que les autorités locales doivent débourser environ 15 000 roupies pour nettoyer une superficie moyenne de 400 mètres carrés de terrain vague, y compris l'élimination des déchets. Le nettoyage des plages a également des contraintes similaires à celles des terrains vagues. Ainsi, la pérennité des opérations de nettoyage sur l'ensemble de l'île devient un enjeu majeur. À cet effet, la National Environment Cleaning Authority contribua à apporter la solution nécessaire en mobilisant les ressources nécessaires. Monsieur le Président, garder Maurice propre est l'une des visions du gouvernement. La question des nuisances des terrains vagues et la manière de s'y attaquer ont été discutées lors de la 22e réunion du National Environment Commission, tenue en 2018 sous la présidence du Premier ministre. Les questions abordées comprennent, entre autres, le renforcement de l'application et de la surveillance des terrains vagues, le suivi et l'identification des propriétaires des terrains vagues, la consolidation des législations existantes et des campagnes de sensibilisation. Malgré cela, les difficultés liées à la gestion des terrains vagues sont toujours présentes. Et là, la National Environment Cleaning Authority fournit la plateforme appropriée pour aider à combler ces lacunes. Monsieur le Président, maintenir la propreté pour conserver la beauté de l'environnement est la responsabilité de tout un chacun. Et seul le gouvernement ne peut pas tout faire. La société civile, les ONG devront agir de manière proactive en aidant à accorder notre environnement le plus propre possible. En tant que personnes bienveillantes, ne sommes-nous pas, en tant qu'individus, suffisamment responsables pour ne pas jeter nos déchets de nos véhicules sur le bord des routes, ramener nos déchets à la maison pour les mettre dans les poubelles, assurer la propreté de nos routes et nos espaces publics est notre responsabilité partagée. Ce n'est pas seulement le travail des nettoyeurs. Je tiens à exprimer ma sincère gratitude à ceux qui, pendant la pandémie du Covid-19, ont travaillé dur pour maintenir la propreté et désinfecter les lieux publics. Nous espérons qu'avec la création de cette autorité et avec la collaboration de tous, nous pourrons être fiers de voir notre environnement à Maurice plus propre. Nous en serons des bénéficiaires et nos générations futures pourront ainsi vivre dans un environnement plus sain. Je terminerai en félicitant le Premier ministre d'avoir présenté ce projet de loi qui confirme la détermination de ce gouvernement à faire de Maurice un lieu de vie, de travail et de séjour plus propre, plus vert, plus sûr, sans manquer de promouvoir globalement Maurice comme une île paradisiaque dans l'océan Indien. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I move for the adjournment of the debates.
Motion. The question is that the debate be now adjourned. Those in favor say aye, those against say no.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I move for adjournment of the House to Tuesday, the 24th of May at 11:30 a.m.
The House stands adjourned. For adjournment matters, I'll ask the Deputy Speaker to step in.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. Specific matter, Honourable Naramari.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, avec la fermeture des écoles pendant la pandémie, les enseignants se sont tournés vers les applications d'Internet pour l'apprentissage des élèves. Mais étant donné que de nombreux parents sont dépourvus des compétences nécessaires pour accéder à l'Internet, au iPad et à l'équipement d'apprentissage à distance et la formation pour l'utiliser, une vérité est rapidement apparue. De nombreux enfants sont restés à la maison sans éducation pendant plusieurs mois. La pandémie a révélé des lacunes dans notre système éducatif. Pour des centaines d'élèves, en particulier dans les familles où les adultes et les enfants manquent de compétences numériques, l'éducation a été suspendue à la fermeture des classes. De nombreux enfants n'ont reçu aucune éducation après la fermeture des écoles. Certaines écoles n'offrent tout simplement pas d'enseignement à distance.
D'autres qui pouvaient l'offrir ont constaté que les élèves et ou les enseignants n'avaient pas de iPad, l'accès à l'Internet ou les compétences nécessaires pour qu'il soit efficace. Le fossé de l'éducation numérique ont davantage creusé les inégalités qui existaient déjà. Alors que les élèves plus aisés ont pu poursuivre leur parcours d'apprentissage à travers l'Internet, d'autres enfants ont été incapables de suivre le pas. Mais il n'y a pas eu de monitoring approprié pour s'assurer que ceux qui avaient accès aux équipements avaient vraiment suivi leurs cours en ligne. Et d'autres enfants encore ont décroché. Comment pouvons-nous dispenser les cours numériquement? Le gouvernement avait préconisé la mise sur pied d'un e-platform dans son dernier discours sur le budget. Ne devrait-on pas se mettre à la tâche très vite en consultant les différents partenaires de l'éducation? Une assise de l'éducation est nécessaire afin de soutenir l'apprentissage en ligne et le renforcement des compétences, d'échanger les bonnes pratiques et voir comment mettre sur pied ce e-platform rapidement pour éviter de creuser davantage les écarts entre nos enfants. Un survey doit également être effectué pour connaître le nombre d'enfants ayant décroché. Ce projet, Monsieur le Président, devra veiller à ce que l'enseignement et l'apprentissage restent ouverts et accessibles à tous à travers la République, en préservant le droit à l'éducation pour tous, surtout en cas de crise. Le projet se devrait d'aller au-delà de la situation actuelle et d'ouvrir un nouveau chapitre numérique sur l'équité et la qualité de l'éducation, que ce soit en temps de crise ou pas. Quelques pays d'Afrique s'y sont déjà attelés à la tâche. Nous nous vantons souvent d'être parmi les premiers en termes d'accès à l'éducation sur le continent africain. Mais force est de constater que nous sommes à la traîne derrière l'Égypte, l'Éthiopie et le Ghana. Une suggestion serait un apprentissage hybride dans les moments de pandémie. Les classes se font normalement avec la moitié de la classe en présentiel et l'autre moitié à domicile et suivant les cours en ligne pendant une semaine et la semaine suivante, on alterne. Ceux qui étaient en présentiel suivent les cours en ligne et ceux qui suivaient la classe en ligne sont en présentiel. Cela permettra à tous les enfants de suivre les classes tout en gardant le contact physique avec leurs camarades et leurs enseignants. C'est une suggestion à être étudiée et considérée en consultation avec les différents partenaires de l'éducation. Je fais ici un plaidoyer afin que le ministère entame le plus vite possible des consultations avec les différents partenaires de l'éducation pour la mise en œuvre d'un nouveau système qui permettrait à tous nos enfants d'avoir accès à l'éducation à travers les nouvelles technologies so that no child is left behind. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Honourable Vice Prime Minister, please.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and 2021, my ministry elaborated the National Education Resilience Strategy to provide an immediate response and ensure continuity in teaching and learning. The objective was to ensure that learners were not disconnected from their studies due to school closures. The strategy comprised various components, namely the broadcast of educational programs on NBC learning channels for primary and lower secondary students, that is from grades 1 to 9. Access to online educational resources available on the Student Support Portal for lower secondary students, and these resources were also made available on the MBC TV learning channels, as we were aware that some students did not have digital devices. The conduct of online classes for upper secondary students in grades 10 to 13, and this involved the creation of credentials to access the Microsoft Teams platforms. Overall, about 8,500 educators' credentials and around 40,000 credentials for students of grades 10 to 13 were created. Equally conscious of the fact that many students did not have access to digital devices and internet connectivity, government decided, in a spirit of ensuring equity and overcoming learning roadblocks, to provide digital devices and internet connectivity to students whose families were on the SRM, the Social Register of Mauritius. The Ministry of Social Integration, Social Security, and National Solidarity catered for these students by providing 1,125 tablets to the students. Furthermore, I'm informed by the Ministry of Social Integration, Social Security, and National Solidarity that provisions were made in the budget for the Mauritius Telecoms to provide free access to broadband internet connectivity to about 7,000 families on the Social Register of Mauritius. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are aware that connectivity and devices were not the only problem. There was a need for teachers to get trained for such a switch from face-to-face teaching to online teaching. And we were also, because of that, we ensured that training was offered to teachers, but then training for a different approach to be adopted with online classes were also considered. However, we must not forget that during that time, we were in confinement and people were not moving around, so the training was done online. Obviously, we also know that there were families who are not on the SRM and whose children face similar difficulties. So government came forward and put up a scheme at the DBM, at the Development Bank of Mauritius, for a loan of up to 50,000 rupees for financing the purchase of digital devices at an interest rate of only 3%. I'm informed that in respect of this loan scheme, a total amount of 6.6 million has already been disbursed. Also, the Ministry of Information Technology, Communication and Innovation has deployed free internet connectivity in 250 Wi-Fi hotspots and 100 public access points across the island and even in Rodrigues for the public. All primary schools are connected to internet. All secondary schools will shortly be connected to internet. Tenders are already out, and all classes, of all grades, libraries, labs, and public areas within the schools would be connected. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the Honourable Fourth Member of Grand Rivière Northwest et Port-Louis West also raised the issue of training on the use of devices and educational platforms such as Microsoft Teams and the Student Support Portal. In fact, students from grade 10 to 13 are already conversant with the use of digital devices, given that they are taught ICT at school up to grade 9 and are familiar with the use of digital devices. We must not forget that as far as primary schools are concerned, as from year 2017, students are provided with tablets in schools, in all grades, and we have now reached grade 5. Next year it will be grade 6. Short videos targeting students were produced to improve their capacity to use these devices and to join the digital platforms. Training of educators, as I've said earlier, was also carried out, and this training is ongoing, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. With a view to bridging the gap, my ministry has come up with additional initiatives, such as the distribution of learning packs to all pupils in the primary schools from grades 1 to 6, and for all subjects. This proved useful to pupils to catch up with their studies if they had not been able to follow the educational lessons on MBC TV channels during the periods of school closure. And furthermore, the MBC managed to allow all these lessons on the 4 channels to be reviewed in case parents could not get their children to follow the classes when they were broadcast. On the other hand, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, to guard against the eventuality of increasing the gap between the students who had followed lessons via the different teaching modes and those who might not have, educators on resumption of schools were asked to engage in catch-up lessons and based on their deeper knowledge about their learners' competencies so as to bring all pupils more or less on par. Furthermore, in a bid to allow more time for students to better prepare themselves for sound learning, the 2021-2022 academic year has been extended to November 2022, and this extension of the academic year enables the full coverage of the curriculum as well as the completion of courseworks and other practical sessions that were interrupted by the pandemic. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, several measures were resorted to, allowing ample time for students to catch up and make good any learning loss arising from the school closures. We should all wise up to the reality that the impact of the pandemic on the education process has not been an exclusive and characteristic feature of Mauritian schooling. The world over, the impact has been the same. Highly developed countries too have borne the brunt, and gaps have been noticed there as well in the provision and access to digital devices. Allow me, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, to reassure the honourable member that government is strongly and deeply conscious of its responsibility to be inclusive and to care for as well as to cater for the learning needs of all of our children. As I have informed the House earlier, we have already started a hybrid program on a pilot basis, and we intend to roll it out in all the other schools after the pilot phase. We intend to have both face-to-face and online classes, and we are starting very shortly with that. We are ready for it, and this is what we intend to do. This government, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, is determined and fixed in its commitment to fight both learning loss and the factors that cause it. Now, what we intend to do also, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, is to come up with a series of programs for students at school, ensuring that we can switch from the face-to-face learning to the online learning and vice versa. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, as I've said earlier, we are aware that there are problems. The problems have arisen elsewhere in the world. 180 countries had had school closures. 91% of students across the world have faced school closures. And we're all aware that the digital gap existed prior to the pandemic and will still exist, but we'll do all that we can to ensure that this gap does not widen further, but instead we need to bridge the gap, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, VPN. Thank you very much. Have a safe trip back.